EA is under investigation and cancels microtransactions. Late November 16th, it was released by VTN News, a Belgian news site, that Electronic Arts' Battlefront 2 was under investigation for gambling regarding its loot box economy. I have made a video released November 16th midday discussing Battlefront 2's manipulative loot box economy and pay-to-win mechanics. According to the news article, there are non-cosmetic items in the game which can be obtained through real money, and because the chance to obtain a wanted item is not 100% guaranteed upon purchase, this qualifies as gambling under Belgian law. Upon further investigation into the matter, I found out that Belgium is actually following EU Council recommendations by the EU Gambling Commission, and if EA is found guilty under Belgian law, it may prohibit sale without a gambling license from EA in the EU as well as Belgium. Basically, they may not be able to sell this game without actually getting a gambling license. This will change the ratings and who can buy the game in different countries, and minors will be prohibited from playing the game as it is gambling. Therefore, the removal of microtransactions from Battlefront 2 is not a response to fans. This is a legal matter. EA is trying to skirt the issue and diminish public scandal involving legalities. Several newspapers have already reported on the issue, including USA Today. EA hasn't managed to mitigate its losses because the fans have had enough, and we yelled hard and long enough for the mainstream media to hear us. But don't be fooled. These transactions are coming back. They will change the system, but they will make them just as manipulative and just as reprehensible as before. They may skirt some laws, or they may play around with some laws, but they will not change their tactics because people are still buying their games. People are still paying into these manipulative vending systems. Imagine going to get coffee, paying for the coffee, and then getting beer instead. Wouldn't you be disappointed? Especially if you're at work, you could get fired for drinking beer at work. Anyway, moving on. EA has heard the calls of fans. Well, no, it hasn't. This is according to some articles. They're saying that they're canceling transactions because of fans, while 2 hours earlier they reported that the fact that EA is actually under investigation regarding their microtransactions. Why are so many news sites not able to put two and two together? Well, for one, different reporters are actually reporting on the issue. This is a case where the internet is actually moving faster than the reporters could possibly process the information. And this is the issue with my video too. I will not apologize for the errors made in my video. There are no microtransactions in Battlefront 2 anymore, but EA has stated that they will be back. This economy will be back in a different form, but it will be just as bad. They haven't changed anything about their systems. People were not upset about paying for DLC later on if they had the choice to. But DLC used to be single player content that you could enjoy offline by yourself. It didn't impact player versus player experiences. But as DLC got bigger and bigger, it got involved into multiplayer. And now if you didn't have some multiplayer maps, this is, by the way, Call of Duty's contribution to the gaming market, which is an Activision title. So if you didn't have multiplayer maps, you're basically splitting yourself off of the rest of the community. You may experience longer wait times because servers were programmed to throw players in a match in the newer maps first, and then worry about the players who didn't bother buying the DLC. This was created artificially. This split of a community was created artificially by games. So they tried a different model, which was loot boxes. This was tried, I think, primarily by Activision Blizzard's Overwatch. They tried loot boxes. We don't have to split the players. We can offer different cosmetic items and still release regular content, new characters, new maps, while paying for it with cosmetic items. That's the argument they have for their system. That's Activision Blizzard's idea, which actually isn't as bad as people might make it out to be, because technically you're paying for the initial release, and then for following releases in DLC, you're not paying for it. The community is pulling their money together, and Activision Blizzard is providing content. And Overwatch does have regular updates. They have new characters released almost every 6 months. So I can't really fault them for that. they have to pay their developers somehow. The problem is, the customization options are random. You are gambling each time you buy something, which means it has the addictive properties of gambling. That's why it's manipulative. If they remove the random chance, loot box away, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But they know exactly what they're doing because casinos have been doing it for, I believe, about 100 years. Ever since the invention of a casino, they knew that they give you the shiny new sign out front, $10,000 price or something like that, if you play the penny slots. And you go in and you play the penny slots, but they're not paying out, and you're just shoveling in pennies, and they never end, and you never feel a loss because you're just shoveling in pennies. So you move on to the bigger machines and you start shoveling in nickels and dimes and quarters, and then soon you're pushing out dollar bills because those machines have higher chance of winning. And all of a sudden you find yourself on the dollar slots, and you're stuck there without money because you've played 100 times. That's exactly what EA and Activision Blizzard are trying to do to your children, mostly, but also to people with addictive personalities, which incidentally includes veterans and other people with high-stress jobs, which basically means they're preying on the weak and those of us who are willing to do the most dangerous jobs and basically move society forward. They're preying on the lifeblood of every country, the young and the brave. In conclusion, EA hasn't moved away from the gambling in their video games. Activision hasn't moved away from gambling in their video games either. Those are the two egregious examples, mostly because they're the biggest companies with the biggest blockbusters. But they're not the only ones who are doing it. Please be on the lookout for video games that use gambling inside their economy. Video games should be a recreational activity that we all can enjoy and move away from more dangerous activities. Or maybe just forget the day. We shouldn't be preyed upon just because we enjoy an activity. Can you imagine if movies or if theater had something similar to this in their economy? Instead of just paying the price of a ticket, when you go in, you can pay an extra quarter or two for a director's cut, or for a different scene that was cut from the previous movie. And everyone has a different experience based on how much they paid. Or if you went to a theater and they told you that during intermission that you have to pay extra if you want to go back in early and see an extra act. That would be ridiculous. You would cancel it. You would go home and you will be angry at the theater. But for some reason, video game companies have been getting away with it for years. It is time to stop, and it is a problem that can only be fixed by the customers. It cannot be fixed with companies. Don't expect anyone to be nice to you and decide to make less money just because they're nice. No one does that.